Thank you. But thank you guys for being here with us. Welcome to Epic Church. We're glad you're here. Everyone is welcome. Everybody's needed, and I hope we all leave changed, don't you? Amen. And in multiple ways. I was thinking about my weight and all kinds of ways. But anyway, last week we started a little series called The Ghost of Christmas Past, and we had Holbrook's course, 8th grade course with you. How many of you missed that last week? You missed it? I feel so sorry for you, man. That was a good week. It was a good day. We had a good day. Got word back from Miss Daniels that all the parents and the families and the kids, they really enjoyed it. The students enjoyed it, and several really were touched and made some commitments to God. And I'm so excited about that. That's a highlight. So great times. But talked about the ghost of Christmas past. So a lot of times we have things in our past that come back to haunt us, right? You ever been there? If you hadn't, just wait a couple years. They'll come back and get you. And last week we talked about labels and things that you've been labeled with. And so next week I'm going to talk about shame and the things that we're ashamed of the past. The following week will be Christmas Eve. We'll be out of this series and really just coming to celebrate the birth of Jesus on Christmas Eve. What great day that'll be. But today we're going to talk about something that's very popular today in this day and time in the society that we live in. We're going to talk about being offended. And we're going to talk about overcoming offenses. Anybody ever been offended? I've been offended 4 times today already. Anybody ever offended anyone? I'm sure, yeah. All right. How many of you know someone who's easily offended? Now, don't point at them because they're going to get offended. Don't point because they're going to get offended, so you don't want to start off the day like that. But how many of you would say that, maybe you get offended a little more often than others get offended? I mean, you can get offended so easily in these days and time. And I mean, it seems like that's where we are as a society. What we wear, what we say, how we drive, our team that we pull for, how we wear. Anything can offend anybody. The hairspray you use probably is offensive to somebody, or the fact that you even use hairspray is offensive because the ozone layer is going to disappear and it's going to go away. You've heard about that for years, right? And it probably causes cancer too. Everything causes cancer, and it is offensive that you do that. And it's offensive that everything. So I don't know about you, but there's a few small things that offend me, and I struggle with these things. When I'm driving in a car and I'm in traffic and I allow someone to get in front of me in traffic and they do not acknowledge me, it offends me highly. Anybody else? At that point, I wish I had an old pickup truck and I could ram them. That's what I feel like inside. That's what I want to do. I have a script of a film in my mind about old pickup trucks and ramming into people, and it's a whole other thing, but that's just something I do. That's one of the things that offends me. When I open the door for someone and they just walk through without acknowledging me, come on, I want to trip them. Guess what? Next time your door's getting shut in your face, not getting open for you, it's offensive. It's an offending thing. I ride on when I go to work at the airport, we have to ride on an employee bus, and this elderly lady, this more experienced lady than me, will come onto the bus. I will stand up for her to have a seat. Others will too. But some of these knuckleheads will sit there and look at them. I'm thinking, that's offensive, son. Get up. I'm going to smack you upside your head and teach you some manners. It's offensive, and that would probably offend them by me smacking them upside their head. Maybe you're talking to somebody face to face, and instead of them talking to your face, they're doing this number. That hurts. That hit somebody deep. Oh, I didn't hear an amen. I heard oh man. Oh yeah. It's tough. I mean, we're guilty of it. We'll sit down at a table and all 4 of us will have something in our hand. There's times when I try to not have something in my hand and I'm trying to carry on a conversation and I look and everybody else has something in their hand and they're doing this and I'm just like, I feel like an idiot. I'm offended. You get offended. Speaking of phones, I mean, if you have social media and you have, say, Instagram and your friend won't follow you, it's offensive, right? And they won't like your pictures. It's offensive. And even worse, if they are your friend and then all of a sudden they're not your friend, that's offensive. Now, I never really know about that, but there are apps that you can put on your phone to let you know when somebody unfriends you. Are you kidding me? That's offensive. That app's offensive. Anyway, you do these things. You text them, and they're slow responsive on the text. That's offensive, right? Oh man, don't point. Don't talk about them. You text someone and they're slow to respond. I mean, it takes them a day. A whole day to answer a simple question. You're like, okay, whatever. Or worse than that to me is when you text them and then they begin to respond. You see the bubbles. If you got an iPhone, do other phones do that too? I know iPhones do that, right? You see the bubbles. You know they're about to respond, and then the bubbles go away. And you're like, what were you thinking? What did you type and then delete? Now I'm offended. I'm losing sleep thinking about the bubbles. Tiny bubble. You're like, they started to respond, they had a thought, and it must have been bad, so they took it away, and now what is it? That's it. That's all I needed, and I'm totally offended, those are some small things we get offended at. I mean, somebody's going to offend somebody because they're going to get the last breast of chicken out there, and you're going to be offended by it, so it is what it is. The holidays come, and you know how it is. The same person will show up to the dinner that you always go to, and they will not bring anything, and they'll eat more than everybody. You're like, come on, are you serious? Someone tells you at that dinner that they don't like the way you're raising their kids. Are you going to that dinner here in a couple days, a couple weeks? And they didn't even have kids. What are they talking about? Or their kids are long gone and they're horrible. And now they want to tell you their advice. But it's interesting to me how, especially around the holidays, the littlest things, the smallest things can set us off in the biggest ways. The smallest things. And I think it's because we're so stressed, we're so maxed out, our life is just going in all different directions, and the smallest things set us off in the biggest ways. And there's a lot of small things that can set us off, but there are some annoying things that can set us off, right? 13 pieces of groceries in a 12 or less line is so annoying and so offensive. But I mean, there's some things like that, but really for many of us in the room, there are some big things as well. And you've got big things that have offended you, and you've been betrayed in a significant way, maybe by someone. You've been maybe lied to or let down. Those things, they leave an offense, they leave a mark. Someone maybe perhaps has talked about you behind your back. Maybe even someone in this room, you've been abused in a way. Those things are huge things, big things. Some of you are going through family situations that, they're dysfunctional at best. They're big things, and you have to deal with those things. And the challenge is so often when we're offended, because we're going to be offended, something's going to happen, we let the offenses kind of sink into our lives and sink into our hearts, and then it comes out in our attitudes, right? It sinks down deep, and then it comes out in our attitudes and the way we talk and the way we act and the way we behave. And when we'll have this entire Christmas dinner, we'll be completely destroyed over something that somebody said last Christmas. Or last, and you'll have those things, and you're like, I just can't enjoy this thing. And there are those of us that you'll have families that are totally divided, totally separated. There are many of us that have friendships that end over these things. And so I would pray today, I pray with all my heart, really, that you don't go into a Christmas season to open up gifts and open up your doors to others while your heart is closed to those same people. Let me open up my door to let someone sit at my table, but my heart's closed to even have a conversation with them. Let's open up gifts and exchange gifts, but my heart is closed to trying to mend some ways. Don't do that. Don't do that to someone you're called to love, because we're called to be people of love, right? I hope that you don't celebrate the love of Christ this season and hate somebody because they offended you. I pray that when we never enjoy the grace of God that has been extended to us, and then we fail to extend the grace of God to others. Because none of us are perfect. I don't know if you knew that, or welcome, Merry Christmas. None of us are perfect. Grace has been extended to each and every one of us, so therefore the grace that we've been extended should now be extended to those around us. Listen, I want to tell you something. I hope you remember this, and I hope you'll get this. Your life is too short, and your calling is too great to live offended lives. Your life is too short, and your calling is too great to live offended. Life's just but a mist. I can remember when I was younger, and I used to mow grass for this lady. I was the youth pastor at North Belmont Church of God. And there was an older lady at the church, and she lived, and I found out she didn't have anybody to mow her grass. She was in her 80s and lived by herself, and I would go by and I'd mow her grass for her. I think she'd give me about $5 a week for it. I had a Dodge Shadow convertible, and I would open the trunk and put my my push mower into the trunk, and I drive down the road, and it's North Belmont. That's just a common occurrence over there. Over there at Springwood area, the slide, there was no redneck comments at all. And so to have a push mower in your trunk and go, anyway, but she would tell me, she would just want to talk afterwards, and I'd usually be in a hurry, but I would sit and talk with her a little bit, and she would tell me about how as the older you get, the faster life goes by. And I was like, you're kidding. It's stupid. It's 24 hours a day. It's 7 days a week. It's 52 weeks a year. It's not going to change. And so, but now I have to go back and tell her, you know what, you were right. Life's just a mist. It goes by really quick. You're here one day and you're gone tomorrow. Life passes by too fast. My little baby who was 8 is now almost 18 and he'll be going off to college soon. How did that happen? Life is just but a mist. It goes by. My calling is great, but so is your calling. It is so great. Every single one of you have a calling on your life. You have been formed. You have been created. God has a plan for you. If you are a Christian, He has called you to minister and do those things. Guess what? We're all called to go and tell the good news, to preach the gospel, and to all the people that we come into contact with. So your calling is too great, and your life is too short to live offended and not be able to minister to those people that are around you. We're called to be the light of the world, you and I. We're called to be the salt of the earth. We're called to reflect the love of Jesus to people that we come into contact with at Walmart. We are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus at school, at work, at the gas station. We're called to show the love of Christ on this earth. That's our calling. That's not just my calling. That's your calling. That's our calling. I heard someone say this recently, and I thought you should hear it as well. Small people carry big offenses. Small people carry big offenses. And I refuse to be a small person. I'm not talking about in stature or in weight. I don't want to be a small person and carry around big offenses. We can't, it's coming on tonight. I saw that tonight. It's coming on. We can't stay frozen. You have got to let it go. Let it go. I've still haven't seen that show from beginning to end. I should probably do that. But you can't stay frozen. And you have to admit that. If you live an offended life, you're frozen in that moment where you were offended. And you've got to let it go, or you're not going to be able to go where God wants you to go. You're not going to be able to do what God wants you to do. You're not going to be able to be who God wants you to be because you're frozen in that moment that you were offended and you can't get over it. So you've got to get to a place where you've got to let it go because our call is too great and our life is just too short to live an offended life. Proverbs 19:11 says, a person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory. It is to your glory to overlook an offense. It is to your glory to overlook an offense. Now, overlooking an offense does not mean that it did not happen. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It is a conscious decision to say, I'm just going to let it go. It's a conscious decision to say, I'm just going to forgive that. It's a conscious decision to say, I'm just going to forget about it. Well, Chad, that's impossible to forgive and forget. Well, Jesus does it. And we're called to be like Him, right? We're called to follow Him. We're called to become like Him. So it's impossible. Well, let it go. Build a bridge and just get over it. Just get over it and move on to what God has for you. We're called to rise above the offense. Rise to the calling that is on your life. Rise to a place where we're coming closer to God. And the closer we get to God, the further we're moving away from the offense. I said it last night. I was talking to April. I said, when we get offended, when we have an offense in our life, we become defensive, right? We want to put on the defense now that somebody's put on the offense. We want to put on, listen, you've got to get over that. You've got to move away from the offense and closer to God. Rene Descartes said it this way. Whenever anyone has offended me, I try to rise my soul so high that the offense cannot reach it. I try to lift my soul so high that I cannot be offended by the things that are going on right down here. Listen, with God's help, I'm getting over this. That's what we should all say. As a matter of fact, say it with me. With God's help, I'm getting over this. Now the rest of you. With God's help, I'm getting over this. I'm getting over being easily offended. Man, it's so easy, isn't it? There's an old song that says, it's so easy to fall in love. But today it's so easy to fall into an offense and say, man, I can't stand it. I can't do this. Ephesians 4:2 says this, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other. Man, this is what Paul said. This is awesome. Making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Even if you don't love them, you love Jesus, and you're supposed to be loved. You might not like them, but you got to love them. You got to love them, their soul. Be patient with each other. Paul's telling us to be patient with other people. Don't you know anybody you got to be patient with? If you don't, hang out with me. You'll have to be patient with me. You have to be patient with others to make allowances for each other's faults because none of us are perfect. None of us. We're all far from it. We judge others by their actions while we hope they judge us by our intentions. We judge others by their actions and we hope they will continue to judge us by what we said we was going to do. I'm judging you by what you're doing, but I want you to judge me by what I said I was going to do. You know what I'm saying? That's what we do. We do that. And in other words, we always want the benefit of the doubt for ourselves, correct? Yep. Amen? Yep. We want the benefit of the doubt. Hey, just home. I'm having a bad day. Just give me the benefit of the doubt. But we're so quick to point a finger at somebody else and say, you know what, but. Everybody point a finger. Just don't point at anybody. Just point a finger. I want you to look at these other three that's pointing back at you right quick. 3 times as many is pointing back at you. You know, well, why didn't you? Well, I know I didn't do it either. On 3 or 4 occasions. You know, we judge them by their actions and we want everybody else to judge us by our intentions. We need to recognize when someone else is just having a bad day. You ever had a bad day? One person. Any ever had a bad day? Monday's coming. If you ain't having a bad one today, Monday will be here shortly. Listen, we need to recognize when someone else has a bad response. We need to recognize when someone else has an uncaring or an unkind or an unfriendly persona or attitude, that their bad response really is not about you at all. What? What are you talking about? Everything's about me. The world revolves around me. Are you kidding? Listen, my bad day is not about you sometimes. My bad attitude might not have anything to do with you. It's not really about you. Their bad day is not about us at all sometimes. Their bad driving is not an attempt to offend you and ruin your day. I can't believe that person just got up this morning just to get in front of me. They just knew I was coming. And here they are in front of me driving 34 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. Are you kidding me? What an idiot. Get out of my way. I've got somewhere to go and I'm 4 minutes late already. Just getting out of my neighborhood. Let's go. Listen, their snarky remarks, they're not about you sometimes. Sometimes they could be. The fact that they walked by you fast without saying hello is not about you. That's the biggest complaint I get at church all the time. Well, Pastor, so-and-so didn't say anything to me. Well, did you say anything to them? Well, no, because they walked by me so fast. Listen, did you ask them if they were having a bad day? Did you ask them if they've had a bad week? Maybe they got fired from their job 2 days ago and their thoughts are like, what am I going to do now? They're not thinking about saying hello to you. Have you ever thought that maybe something's not about you? My Lord. I haven't, because everything's about me. It's got to be. Listen, I come to church. I'm the pastor of church, and I'll see people over in the corner whispering. I think, they're talking about me. I've had council meetings and say, asked the council, was y'all talking about me? No, we was talking about a ball game. Well, I don't know. I thought y'all looked at me. And you pointed. I saw Derek whispering to Chip last week, and I thought, oh, Lord, what have I done? I have come to figure out, I don't know for sure, but he was telling Chip to go pick up the chicken and have it here at a certain time. It's easy, isn't it? And I'm the pastor. I'm supposed to be holier. I can do the whatever thing or whatever. That's the first time I've tried that since I saw him. Some of y'all are like, what the heck does that? Listen. You know, just because they don't say hello doesn't mean it's about you. It just means that maybe they're having a bad day. Or they've had a bad year. You know, some people are on a bad decade. You know, it's just been a string of bad luck. Their PMS is not about you. Unless you ask about it, then it's about you. So don't ask about it. Pretend it does. You don't even know what it is. What is that? Don't even ask. Sorry, I didn't even. Let's move on. Strike that from the notes. All right. Listen, when someone is short with me, here's what I'm learning to try to ask. I'm trying to ask myself. When they're short with me, or they ignore me, or I feel like they're doing something that I'm learning to try to ask myself, I wonder what they're going through. I wonder what they went through this week. I wonder if they're hurting. And I wonder where they're hurting. I wonder if, when they seem a little bit rude, instead of judging them, maybe I should show compassion to them. Maybe I should lend out a hand, or instead of immediately taking offense, maybe I should take their life to Christ and pray for them. I feel offended. Maybe I should pray for and have compassion on someone because, I've decided it's time to get over being offended so easily. We can't live a life offensive, man. We can't. If I'm honest, I've had times. I even told you, I've had times I've let people offend me. I will. If I'm really honest, I've allowed people to offend me, and I've had opportunities to have bad feelings toward those people, and think about those things, and have bad thoughts toward those people. I didn't pray bad things on them. That never, ever. Bad thoughts. It didn't make it to the prayer. I go to work a lot of times, and we have people, and they'll say, "Put me on the prayer list this week, Pastor." I said, "You need to be. You're way past that. You're way. We need to bring the anointing oil or something to work." But listen, we've got to do. I guess usually what happens when I finally have the guts to go talk to someone that I feel like's offended me, I find out it wasn't even about me, and I have wasted a lot of my time and a lot of my energy and a lot of tossing and turning at night over things that weren't even about me. It was about something else. It was about their life and their issues. It wasn't about my issues at all. And so we got to do that. How much time do we waste building a case against someone else, When they're not even thinking about us at all, and my life is really just too short, and my calling is really too big and too great, that with God's help, I've got to get over this. I've got to make allowance for other people's faults. I've got to come to a place where I've got to overcome being so easily offended, and I've got too much to do for God to live a life in offense. And so do you. You've got too much to do. With God's help, I'm overcoming being easily offended, man. That's what you need to say. With God's help, I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to overcome being easily offended because it probably wasn't even about me. You'll know if it's about you eventually. But a lot of times you're just taking assumptions, man. You can't assume. There's a whole other story on that deal. But let's say, with God's help, I'm getting over being so easily offended. With God's help, I'm getting over the big offenses. Now, I want to be light with this. I want to really tread lightly in this moment because, let's be honest, there are some big hurts in this room. There are. And I'm going to tell you what, the holidays have a way of just magnifying things. The good gets great. The bad gets worse. The ugly gets just downright horrific. My mother passed away on December the 8th. Apparently 7 years ago. Because, how do I know this? Because I read that on Facebook this week. On December 8th, I had several people want to write memorials about my mother, and that's fine. My mom was a wonderful woman, an awesome woman. And to be honest, I haven't dealt with it probably in a healthy way. I'm like most men. I will put it on a file and put it back in the back corner of my life and maybe never see it again. Am I right, guys? And it's not healthy. Let's just be honest. It's not healthy. Women usually deal with it and they cry and boo-hoo, and men, we just whatever. Just move on. Life's got to be lived. We go. And but man, I can't tell you, every Christmas, man, I miss my mom. I do. And I miss my mom more for my boys than I do for me. I want my mom to see. She was crazy about Christmas. She would buy gifts. And my dad's like Ebenezer Scrooge Jr. He's not even here. He can't defend himself. But he got so mad one time because he said we were so spoiled, he gave all our Christmas gifts away. Literally like the week before Christmas, he emptied out the whole tree and gave them all away. And my mom went out and replaced every one of them gifts. She's probably been in debt for 10 years later, but she replaced every one, and probably 3 or 4 more each. I mean, we used to get way too much. We got way too many gifts. I mean, and so, man, I miss that. And man, I would love to experience my mom. My mom and dad would even, wherever we live, they'd come, they'd be there before we'd wake up. We would sleep in. I mean, we got kids that like to sleep in at Christmas Day. Hallelujah. And they'd come wake us up. Hey, we want to come watch you open your presents. We're all standing around in underwears. Well, let me put some clothes on, And so, but man, I know that there are big hurts. They're even bigger than that one for me. I mean, there are big hurts in this room. There are big offenses, that you've got to come over that somebody really did do you wrong. They really did do you dirty. I mean, we were at a ball game the other day and Dylan fouled out and somebody said, man, Dylan got done wrong. And he did. That referee was retarded. I apologize. That's a bad word to say. He was not smart. Angela, don't tell Angela I said, is she here? Don't tell her I said that word. She doesn't like when I say that. He was not a smart guy. And I told him on several occasions that I was praying for him. But listen, man, a lot of us in this room, especially at Christmas time, especially that it stirs up the betrayals. It does. Man, it stirs up the hurts. It stirs up the abuses. It stirs up the lies that you've experienced, that you've endured. Chip Norman reached out to me the other day about a young man. He said something about a young man wanting to come to church and he just needs a place to rest and a place to relax and a place to be ministered to. They felt like he'd been hurt. And I'm going to tell you, it's unbelievable that almost everybody in this church ended up here because they'd been hurt somewhere. Or they were tired and they needed a place just to rest and find Christ. And again, it's unbelievable. And this time of year, it just has a place. And when we've been hurt, we have a choice. Anybody ever been hurt before? Let's do it this way. Have you never been hurt? If I see a hand, I'm gonna punch you in your face. No, I'm just kidding. Then you can go home and say, I've been hurt. The pastor hurt me. It might have hurt you that I said I was going to do it. But anyway, you've got a choice to make. You can rehearse what happened. And man, we do that good, don't we? Man, I remember exactly the day, the hour, the minute, and the second that person said what he said. And if I ever get a chance, I know exactly what I'm going to say. I didn't say it then, but I've had 12 years, 6 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days to think about it. And now I know exactly what I'm going to say if I ever see him. I'm rehearsing it. I've thought it up, and boy, I've got a 5-paragraph essay with 3 solid points that I'm going to let them know about. 3 solid. I'm going to bring them all 3 up in the first paragraph. I'm going to take a paragraph and tell them each about each point. And then in the last, I'm going to bring a summation in that final paragraph. That was my favorite thing. That's the only thing I remember about English. 5-paragraph essay. Beautiful thing. You have a choice. You can rehearse it, and we do very good about that. You can go over it and over it and over it and feed the bitterness and fuel the anger, and it drives you to dislike the person deeper and deeper and deeper into your heart. You can rehearse it, or with God's help, you can release it. You can rehearse it, or with God's help, you can start to release it. We can rehearse it, or with God's help, we can start to release it. The Bible, the Hebrew word for release literally means to pass over. I'm going to pass over it. I'm going to overcome it, because Chad just read me a story, a scripture says it's to my glory to overcome, to overlook an offense. The process of forgiveness, man, it takes time, doesn't it? It don't happen overnight. It's a process. But as we seek God, as we press into God, as we pray and seek God's face, really to do the right things, man, guess what? His Spirit begins to become really big in our life and really strong in our life. And through His Spirit, we can actually start to change our hearts. We can actually start to change our minds. And we can actually start to change our lives towards other people that have offended us. Colossians 3:13 says, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Anyone. Wow. Are you sure? Anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Some of you are thinking of somebody right now. Man, I just looked down and realized it's after 12 o'clock. I've never preached after 12 o'clock here at this church. Thank you. It's good to be here. We got lunch ready for you. We'll be first in line. But listen, some of you are sitting here saying, no, I'm thinking of somebody right now that offended me, and if I had the chance right now, I'd tell them something. I'd let them know. I'd let them have it. what do you do? How do you get to that point? Remember, the Lord forgave you. Yes, He did. The Lord forgave you, so you must forgive them, is what that scripture says. The Lord forgave me, so I'm called to forgive others. I don't like that. The vengeance is mine, saith Chad. That's what I'd like to say. I've got plans, not for them to prosper. I've got plans to harm them, not for good. I'm doing the reverse of Jeremiah 29:11. I got Jeremiah 92. I rewrote it. And I got something planned, but that's not what it's about. God forgave me, so He's called me to then turn and forgive others. So how do I do that? How do I forgive somebody that seems so unforgivable? You got those people in your life? How do you forgive someone that's so wrong, that's so brutal, that's so horrific? How do you forgive someone that hurt you? And even worse than that, how do you forgive someone that hurt your family? Hey, they can hurt Chip, they can hurt us, but they hurt my wife, it's over. Right? They hurt your kids, and then we're going to fight. I'm a man. I'm a full-grown man. I'll take it. But you hurt my wife, we're going to go to fist. You hurt my boy, son, we're going to town. I might not win, but you'll know I was in the fight. Only reason I say I wouldn't win because I'm out of shape. Golly, Mom. But listen, you know what, man, you can hurt me, but don't you talk about my kids. Don't talk about my wife. And that's one of the things about being a pastor. You're like, I'm now going to submit. Derek grew up a pastor's kid. He knows. It ain't just about the dad. It's about you and everybody else. Listen, how do we forgive those things? How do we do that? How do we forgive as we've been forgiven? We simply forgive as we've been forgiven. That's what it says. How do we forgive as we've been? Well, we just do it. We simply forgive. I don't know about you, but I've been forgiven for a lot. Chad Ryan Collins, born on August 2nd, 1971, in the old Gaston Memorial Hospital on Highland Street, has been forgiven for a lot. He's been forgiven for a lot. I look at all of the years that I've lived and at all the times that I've let people down and at all the times that I've been less than honest and at all the times that I've hurt people throughout the years and all the times that I've blatantly sinned against God, first degree sin, planned to sin, did to sin, and then asked God to, first degree, premeditated sin. I've been forgiven for a lot. So how do I forgive someone that seems unforgivable? I forgive them in the same way that I've been forgiven. That God's forgiven me. I do that freely, that I've been forgiven, so freely I've got to forgive others. It's a process. God, help me forgive them. God, change my heart. That's my prayer. God, give me the grace for others that you've given to me. Lord, you've given the grace into my life. Now give me that same grace to pour out to others. God, I pray for this person even though I don't want to. I'm praying for this person, but I don't want to pray for them. I've been forgiven, and I want to forgive in the same way that I've been forgiven. I've got to do that. I pray this Christmas season that you will let God crack open your heart, your hard heart. That you'll let Him crack open your heart into a place that you can forgive some things. Something that seems unforgivable in the same way that Christ forgave you. The very thing that was holding you back so long, man, because offenses can hold you back from who you want to be. They'll hold you back, man. My prayer is that you'll begin to pray that God, this thing that's held me back will not hold me back anymore. Because I'm growing close to God. I want to be close to you, God. And the small offenses of this world cannot continue to hold me back and keep me away from what God has for my life. I don't want to come up short in my pursuit of Christ because of things I've allowed to offend me. I'm not going to rehearse this anymore. I'm going to release this thing. I'm not going to rehearse it. I'm just going to get over it. I'm going to move past it. I'm going to go to a place that God wants for me. And before long, you're not just saying, I'm getting over it. With God's help, you're going to get over it. With God's help, you're saying, I'm over it. With God's help, you'll say, hey, I'm different. It's not a bother to me anymore. I'm moved on past this with God's help. It doesn't hold me back anymore because of God. I am over it. I'm moving on into what God has planned for my life. Man, if you look real quick, Joseph in the Bible in the Old Testament, if anybody had a chance to be offended, it was Joseph. Joseph's brothers, Joseph has a dream. He goes and tells his brothers don't like his dream. His brothers throw him in a pit. They find a pit, they throw him in the pit, and they say, you know what, we're going to leave him here to die. This is his own brothers. Can you believe it? Now, I've had some bad thoughts against my brothers. Never thought about killing them. And then one of the other brothers has a moment of clarity and says, you know what, let's don't let him die. Let's sell him into slavery. That'll be so much better. And we'll tear up his coat and we'll tell Dad he got in a fight with a lion, tiger, and a bear. Oh my. And so they do that. And then Joseph sold out in slavery, and then in there he's serving and he's doing what he's supposed to do. And then Potiphar begins to see that things are happening and things go along, and he's falsely accused while he's serving Potiphar. And then he's put into prison. He's gone from pit to the prison, and he serves in prison, and he continues to live a life of integrity. And he does these things. It's an amazing gift. And it's an amazing story, but he has an amazing gift in his life to interpret dreams. So Pharaoh hears about this, and because of this gift, he actually begins to be elevated. He goes I've heard one preacher preach it, from the pit to the prison to the palace. And it's a whole nother Sunday. But anyway, he's there, and God puts him second in charge to Pharaoh in Egypt. Well, Pharaoh has this dream. Joseph interprets the dream. There's coming a time of famine. Store back, take back, put some things away. For when the famine comes, we'll have enough to live and make it through it. So he does. That happens. Guess what? Everybody else is in famine. Guess who's in famine? His old brothers are in famine. His brothers are hungry. Daddy sends them to go find some food. They show up to Egypt. There they are. Guess who's in charge of the keys to the pantry? Joseph. Joseph recognizes them. And he sees them, and guess what? His brothers recognize him, and they're like, we in trouble now. We offended him highly back in the day. Years and years and years have passed. Joseph has had time to rehearse it over and over and over, or he's had time to release it. You know, and these brothers, they think, man, we're hungry. We've come to get some food. Joseph recognizes his brothers who betrayed him. Joseph has every opportunity and every right to be upset with his brothers. If Joseph would have done what many of us would have done, the story would read a lot differently. Probably would not have been included in the Bible. If he had time to rehearse it. But he had planned to make things even. He had plans to do things much different ways. Instead, he chose to, by the grace of God, not to rehearse it, but to release it. He sees his brothers. He breaks down. He said, man, I cannot believe this. You're here. I am your brother, Joseph, who you thought was gone. And what you meant for evil, God has turned and used for good. What you meant for evil, God has taken, and He has got His hands on it, and now it's not bad, it's not evil, but it's turned to good. Man, it's turned to good. What you meant for evil, my God turned it into good, and my God used it for the good. I'm over this. It's behind me. I'm letting it go. I'm not going to let it slow me down. I'm doing what God called me to do. I'm so over the past. I'm moving into the future. That's what Joseph did. And there are those of us in this room that I believe in the presence of God. If you guys want to come to the music, in the presence of God. That's where we get into it. In His presence, when we get into worship, we're in His presence. We're in His presence. In the presence of God, He's going to do a healing work on your life. He's going to do a healing work on your soul. You're no longer going to be under the curse of the past. With God's help, I'm getting over it. You should start whispering that to your life right now. With God's help, I'm going to get over it. With God's help, I'm going to get over it. And the more you say it, and the more you believe it, and the more you worship it, the more you allow God to do what only God can do, you're not going to say, I'm going to get over it. You're going to say, with God's help, I am over it. With God's help, I am over it. Because of His grace, hey, I've let it go. I've let it go and I've moved on. What used to hold me back, because of God's goodness, it's made me stronger. What hasn't killed me has made me stronger, and I'm standing here today stronger. What used to hurt me in the past has conformed me into the image of Christ. Man, God used what happened to me in my past to make me who I am in the present. He's used those things. What weighed me down for years no longer holds me down now. Why? Because I'm over it. Because I've allowed Jesus to forgive me, and now I've turned and I've forgiven others and say, you know what, I can't do that. I can't live in that. It is to your glory to overlook. It is to your glory to rise above, to not be held hostage to the offense that is in your life. Because life is too short to live offended. And I'm not talking about mine, I'm talking about yours. Your calling is too great to be offended. There are too many people that are depending on you to be who God called you to be. William, I'm going to tell you, there are people we'll come into contact with that you'll come into contact. I'll never know. You'll go on your job. You'll go on an assignment you had to think it's just out of the blue. And before you know it, God has used you to do something that nobody else could do. Man, but if you had your rear on your shoulders, you know what I'm saying? Oh, well, I can't believe they didn't talk to me at church yesterday. Ugh. I walk around, my head down, and my heart broken. And man, hey, look up. There is a people, a lost and dying world is waiting for you and I, the hands and the feet of Christ, to minister to them. Man, life's too short. Your calling is too big. Those people that you're selling insurance to, those people that you're writing out contracts for, those people that you're meeting on the loading dock, those people that you're meeting at the school, those people that you're meeting at Walmart, those people that you're fighting over the last Columbia jacket that's on half price at Belk. That's mine. Those people need Christ more than they need that Columbia jacket. Columbia jacket, where'd that come from? Man, Jesus is so big in us. But he can't be if we continue to make that offense bigger than him. Man, I can't be held hostage because life's too short and your calling is too great. God created you. God shaped you. God formed you. And God gifted you. And God put you in this moment in history. This is your time to shine. This is your time to shine. My mom used to wake me up every morning. She would say, my dad would stand at the foot of the steps and say, Chad. I mean, that's annoying. Yes, Dad. Get up. And he'd do it going on. My mom would walk to them. She said, rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. Children of the Lord. That's my mom. French toast cooking. Big difference, right? I've thought about that song over and over through the years that my mom used to sing to me every morning, 365 days a year. Rise and shine. This is your time to give God the glory. And I can't give God the glory if I'm going to worry about everything that's happened to me. It's to my glory to overlook an offense. And by overlooking that, my glory is going to bring him glory. And I'm going to be a part of what's supposed to happen in this time in history because this is where I am. If you've lived like me for far too long, being easily offended, I don't ask you to raise your hand. Man, who do they think they are? Who's he think he is? He don't know what I'm going through. Man, if you've lived that way for far, I want to say, come on, man. Come on, man. Your calling's bigger than that offense. Life's too short to let something so small draw you off the course that Jesus put you on. It's a big offense. I know there's some big ones. Let's be honest. They're tough to get through. How do we forgive it? We just forgive it by forgiving it. We move past it by moving past it. How do we get past the past? We just get past it. We move on. We forgive them in the same day that we've been forgiven. When we forgive it, it doesn't change it. It happened. It still happened. But it changes. It doesn't change the past. It changes the future. Yes, it happened. But it changes today, and it changes tomorrow, and it changes the next week, and the next. It changes what I'm able to do because I'm not living back there again. I want to ask you to stand this morning. I want you to bow your heads.